Okay, so originally I was going to just do a text tournament write report, but to be honest, I don't want to, and it's just gonna be a little bit quicker and easier for me to upload this. Plus, it'll be easier to find the long run. I could have streamed this, but harder to find things on the live tab than just the videos tab. So tournament report. This past weekend I played in a Pioneer RCQ. In my about an hour from where I live. It was unfortunately the good news was I went to the RCQ that only had 8 players. The bad news is it was 8 players, and honestly, for the most part, fairly good skill level because everyone went there wanted to win, and they all have experience, which is good. So I guess I'll go through the matchups and I'll explain how everything goes. I'll try to remember everything I can. Primarily, I'm only saying this because it happened. I'm currently recording this Sunday night, and it was a 3 round event that happened on Saturday afternoon. So it was like 3 hours long total, even with untimed rounds. So starting with round one, it was against Red Black Vampires. I'll be honest, I don't remember too much from the match. I remember enough to make it be relevant. Game one, I think I was on the draw against it. I did win. Oh, I even spelled vampires wrong here. Oops, let's fix that. Let's see. Let's see. Working on the fly. Okay. I beat Red Bellic Vampires in 2 games. They were on the play for both the games. Game one, I basically had 2 lands and basically the perfect 7 you could ask for. Even through Thoughtseize, I had everything you could ever ask for, just from a generically powerful enigmatic draw. I don't think fires would have changed too much, but um, my interaction definitely pre-board that helped. In post-board game, pre-boarded, I kept the same. I did not get turn 3 Fane Rippered either game, which was very helpful. I think I stumbled on mana in one of the games. I missed some land drops. I think that was one of my problems this past weekend was I was keeping too many 2 landers. It did come to bite me later on. I'll explain when that happens. Um, but yeah, it was a fairly straightforward matchup. Just get down to a low enough total. Like I went all the way down to 2 at one point, and then eventually I just worked my way all the way back up to when my opponent considered that I was at 19. It looks like I had a tracks out attacking for a couple turns, and they couldn't do anything about it. And then they slowly lost their own life total. Yeah, they for the mo I'm checking my life path right now. Yeah, looks like at one point I just swung for a lot, and then they conceded, which makes sense. Nothing they could really do about that. Um, I think I forget which game it was, but I definitely um played Leyline Binding on Shieldred in my upkeep to get rid of it, and then I played Enigmatic, and then I stole it, and they had no interaction, and they had no removal for their own Shieldred, which was lovely. Um, Post board against vampires, you bring in Spell Pierce, pick your poison. I brought in Nimble Larcenous. I think I brought in the verdicts. I forget if I brought in the Spell Pierce or not. Um, I think I brought in a Supreme Verdict or two, because I think I wanted to cut the Deathlink Carry-Ons because it doesn't do enough in my opinion in the matchup. More on the card later, and then I cut Deathlink Carry-On, I cut Eidolon. I think I even cut the Flanker, honestly. Like, it doesn't do a lot in the matchup. I forget what would have been the last card I cut. Maybe the Fable, I think. I think I cut Fable. I think he played all depending. I cut No More Lies or Fable. Basically, on the play, I forget which one, but I know I cut one a Fable or a Normalize if it, and that was play draw dependent. So I guess on the draw I cut Fable. That's what I did. So it was Eidolon, Flanker, the Exile doesn't really matter, I just wanted to remove it, plus I have a couple other good creatures to grab. Definitely Carrion for another Verdict, and Fable, just to trim. That is bringing me down on my enchantment count for my 4 drops, but honestly, it was fine. Wasn't really too worried about that. Game 2 went very similar. What I do want to point out is game 1 went similar. That was the game where I stole Shieldred very early on. Um, and I eventually swung at them for 7 with a Micromancer. Oh yeah, this was the Micromancer game I really liked. What I liked about Micromancer is that at one point they had Fable. They had I had gone through a turn where I had Fable, Agent, and Shieldred in play. They upticked on uh Sorn and killed the not Fable. They killed the Agent Treachery. They thinking back, they felt like this was a mistake, which makes sense. But I was in a position where I could have just stolen something else. Where I said end step, uh, sack Fable, grab Micromancer, grab No More Lies, go. And then when they untapped, they didn't do anything. So on their end step, I end up using 3 steps ahead to make a copy of Micromancer, to grab Getaway Glamour, to exile their Fable and destroy. No, it was exile their Fable, destroy their own Shieldred, and then I was able to swing in for lethal. Just Micromancer being able to be extremely versatile and grabbing that removal spell and just being able to close the games. Yes, I was already ahead. Yes, I was likely going to win, but being able just to shut that door, just Micromancer, grab a counter spell, and force the opponent to be no make the opponent be unable to fight through the interaction, and just having the ability to make a copy of something, which I even made a copy of Agent later on in the day, or just grab one of the removal spells. It's extremely helpful. So as Red Black Vampires, it was very clean sweep. Don't have like 20 minutes spare. Round 2 was against 4-color Omnath. This was a Gigantha variant. Um, Not much to say. It was a generic Bring to Light Omnath. You can tell me coin this at night because I just had to yawn. You could tell that I could tell this was no, you can tell this was just a fairly basic or traditional build of Green to Light Omnath. It still ran all the things just in a Gigantus shell. Basically, game 1, I was just in complete control of the game and was able to just have that hold up the counter magic and have enough ways to stop them when they tried to wrath. I had an idea of when they would need to bring to life for a sweeper, so I didn't lead into that. I think the only debate I really have was there was one turn early on where I held Deafening Clarion in my hand, thinking about like, okay, they have Sylvan Courier, Fable, the Fable token. How much can they really do here? Can I afford to advance my game plan, or do I really need to sweep their board? I chose to advance my board state, to be honest, and then they just had a really strong backbreaking turn, and that game went back and forth for quite some time. Eventually, I was just able to land Elvish and they weren't really able to do much about it, and I protect, especially after they used the only sweeper, and then they used their Valky to cast Tibalt. I was able to interact with all of it. Post board, we brought in the Spell Pierce Swan Song because the only creature I saw was Omnath. I didn't see any others, and it being able to hit anything they tutor off of, plus the Brain to Lights, is so useful. Pick your, um, I'm not entirely sure if I brought in Pick Your Poison. If I did, Pick Your Poison is a really strong magic card. Basically, we're playing it to remove Fable or um remove Beanstalk for 1 mana. Seems pretty strong. I forget if I brought it in or not, and I didn't write it down. Um, Anytime I'm playing against a Bring to Light deck, I always like to bring in Nimble Lustness, just a way to bring in additional removal. Um, as far as cards, and then Verdict I bring in as my answer to in case they're playing Elishorn, which to be honest, it's extremely likely since it just does so much. Post board, I look to cut the Eidolon. I think I kept Eidolon to shut off Bring to Light, but I cut the Deafling Clarion and I cut the Chain to Rocks for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I forget if I brought in the Pick Your Poison, but I cut the Deafling Clarion, I cut the Chain to Rocks. I may have cut the I think I cut the Flanker because it doesn't do a lot here in the matchup. The most relevant thing about Flanker is that Exile's Graveyard. Everything else is fine, but I have other cards like Wandering Mind, either Chandler just to generically get. Game two, I kept a two-lander with double Beanstalk, and I missed land drops, so that game was over fairly quickly. I didn't really reveal. Oh, I brought in Dispute, so I brought in Dispute as well. So I ended up cutting a few more things. Maybe I trimmed on a Leyline Binding just because I don't want to get into the Leyline Binding war, and that's just a mess to get into to begin with. But that's kind of like the idea of when you're playing against Omnath or just these Green to Light decks, is you don't really want Chain to Rocks. Your exile, just temporary exile effects aren't that good against Leyline Binding decks that really care about ETPs. So Dispute, Swan Song, Spell Pierce. Honestly, very few, you never anticipate the Spell Pierce. Just having that hard non-creature count is so important. But yeah, and then the third win was turn three. They played a Beanstalk on two, and then turn three I said, okay, I don't have a great play. I'll just play the Skyclave Apparition, hit their Beanstalk, and they weren't able to draw a couple extra cards, and that really helped me get ahead. And I was really in control for most of the game, and towards the end, I was just able to have up Micromancer, grabbing 3 steps ahead. I said, okay, interact, go. And like, there were multiple games where I played Agent Treachery, and ended up stealing like 2, 3, 4 things. And at one point in game three, I just stole 3 lands. My opponent was really never past six mana, and I just kept on stealing lands because it was the best thing. I think there was one turn where I probably overextended into the board wipe, where I probably should have held up a counter spell and like don't feel normalize. But not much you can really do there. Looking back, like I still won the match. I think there's a couple play points where I could have played better, but I don't. I feel like double 2 lands, double Beanstalk on the draw. You have like five draws to hit a land. Those are some pretty good draws, honestly. I don't know the exact odds. I haven't run the math or anything, but the math just seemed too good not to pass up. I still needed some more lands to get through the hand, and being on the draw meant I was already on the back foot. So definitely something to keep in mind in the future. Um, and then Waste Not. I mean, there wasn't too much to talk about for that matchup. My opponent game one was on the play. Then they went turn one Thoughtseize, turn two Waste Not, turn three Go Blink, turn four Go Blink. Game two, my opponent went turn one nothing, turn two Waste Not, turn three Go Blink, turn four Liliana. Just being able to rip the hand apart is not that helpful. I think post board I brought in Nimble Larcenous, Swan Song, Spell Pierce, Tolsomia, Pick Your Poison. Just ways to interact with the Waste Knot and ways to accrue advantage. Um, Again, cutting some of the things I've already talked about. I think I end up cutting some of the Chain to Rocks because they don't have that many targets in their deck. But yeah, nothing super, nothing like extremely relevant was brought in. It was just, it doesn't feel a good matchup when the opponent does turn one discard, turn two win condition, turn three discard, turn four discard, win off of that. So nothing could really be done there. But moving from the matchups themselves to the deck, to be honest, I would run back 94 of the 95 cards. If you're in the Discord for Enigmatic, you'd already know the card in question, but just to go through all the cards real quick. Mana base was great. I think if anything, I wanna swap this island for a plains. I think that has to do some. I had to mess around with um steam vents or something like that. Like I need. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I need to run a basic plains instead. I have too many reasons. Like I have a couple reasons why I want to be blue post board, but in reality, leyline buying is the biggest factor, and it's one of the most important things about it. Running two basics is, I think, relevant right now. I think you want to run two simply because of the amount of decks running Fields Ruin and decks that like that. I, I don't know the numbers. I just know I need to go down an island for planes. Probably an untapped source which messes around with um. It may just have to be a check land, honestly. Like cutting an island, playing an extra Hinterland Harbor, playing one less Glacial Fortress, or probably a Sunpillar Grove if I can figure out the numbers around it. I think if I could, I'd play one less Sunpillar Grove or one more Hinterland Harbor, something like that. I have to check the numbers, but that's kind of like what I would do with the mana base. Is I would play a basic plains over the basic island. Um, March really didn't come up today, but just having just a different interactive spell that can hit a wide variety of things is still super relevant. March is the only one that does it. Three steps I was very impressed with today. Getaway Glamour just being a versatile thing that's good offensively or defensively is great. I think that's the best thing about these three cards. You can play offensively or defensively, and this deck all and I guess I need to talk about Micromancer first, as I'm talking about all these. Sorry if I. Alright, my microphone cut off for a second, which was very annoying. Um, in defense of Micromancer, first of all, I know some people still don't like it. I've been impressed by it because you can't treat Micromancer as just something you can get on turn 3 for value or turn 4 for value off of the Enigmatic. Like Enigmatic, sack Fable, grab Helia, bring back Fable. That's just a good play to make once Fable's on chapter 2 on turn 4. You have to kind of treat Micromancer as this 7 drop in a sense. Like that can get something else, or that can just buy you additional value as games go along. Because this deck plays 6 main deck counterspells, excluding 3 steps ahead. It runs 2 Veto, 4 No More Lies. This is the draw. The draw to the deck is being able to have Dovin's Veto, Leyline Binding, and Omnisy all in your hand at the same time. So you want the games to go long. You have the defensive mechanisms in place for the game to go long. You want that. So by treating this as more like a 7 drop per se, you don't really want to get it unless you have the mana to have either the 3 steps or the getaway or the march. So you need the mana. So you can't treat Micromancer as a traditional 4 drop. You have to treat it as a 4 drop you can play on turn 4 if you have to. But ideally you 2 it to go get whatever you need. Do you need a counter spell to close out the game? Do you need a getaway glamour to interact with your opponent's board? Or do you need a march to get something that's hard to deal with? Like that's what Micromancer offers. It's not something you definitely get on turn 3 or turn 4 by no means. Unless you feel hyper confident, I would never do that. I would always try to get Heliod and reset whatever I was getting, or I would sack an Omen or a Beanstalk and get maybe like a Wandering Mind, because I think Wandering Mind is better in this specific build than Moonbusker because of how much different types of ways you can interact on your opponent's turn. So going back to the package in the main deck, Getaway Glamour kind of talked about like the best case scenario, and I saw it today by being just able to control their board state by being able to protect one of your things potentially and destroying their best thing, as long as it's the greatest power of all creatures on the battlefield. Being able to stop any spells that you need to be interacting with, or making a copy, or worst case, you just pay 3 mana, draw 2, discard 1, which is still pretty good. I mean, you're card neutral, but you're digging it deeper into the deck. And then March actually works well with Beanstalk. Um, Again, the draw to this build is the package of Dovin's Veto and Normalize. So by having just pieces of interaction for it is so important. And obviously the deck plays up to Beanstalk Omen as the core enchantments. This is a really creature-like deck, which I will get to what definitely in a bit, because you only run 6 creatures as in the 3-drop slot, plus another 2, 4, 6 total. So you're not running that many creatures. You're only running 12 total creatures in the deck, which is extremely light creature count for Enigmatic. You typically see Enigmatic decks running about 15, roughly about 18, give or take 2, depending on how heavy they are. But usually the second 4-drop is Micromancer, but again, Tree is a 7 in this type of deck. You don't want to get it on 4, you want to get it later. I wish we had a better generically powerful card in Elder Gargoth that doesn't need additional mana to invest, because I could see this possibly being Kenrith, but the fact that you need so much mana to invest in Kenrith, and Kenrith is best with Fire's Invention, so you can go both cast the spells and activate Kenrith is so nice. I kind of miss that reanimation that we had with Kenrith by being able to return a Wandering Mind, return a Skyclave, return Heliod, or even any of the 7-drops. But to be honest, we kind of already get that off of Getaway Glamour and 3 Steps. So it's not the worst thing in the world. Just I wish I had more is really how I feel it. Elish Norn will never leave this deck. If it does, I will be shocked and amazed. Heliod is always a good card. You can never say, I can't ever say bad things about it. Just does so much. And the backside is even more relevant in this build. Just being able to just pay 3 mana and 2 life, flip it past turn, and hold up interaction. You're literally holding up your entire deck. I think I was able to flip it once. But yeah, that's the entirety of the deck. I definitely misplay. I definitely mistrigger. But moving on to the sideboard. Well, no, I can't move on to the sideboard before I talk about Deathling Clarion. So the reason why I want to play Deathling Clarion this weekend was because of the lifelink. The lifelink was really the big thing that pulled me towards it, because both Radiant Flames and Deathling Clarion were both going to deal 3 damage at most because Thalia does not see much play at the moment. So I like the idea of it. Honestly. Oh, and Deathling Clarion does not interact poorly with Chain to Rocks, Beanstalk, and Omen. That's the other thing compared to Temporary Lockdown. The thing about Temporary Lockdown though is that it's really good against our worst matchups compared to Deathling Clarion, because there's a whole bunch of different ways that creatures can get larger than 3 power, or just get protection in general. You won't get What gets around that and buys us time is Temporary Lockdown. Especially if we're seeing a lot more Waste Not in the format. Um, just being able to not only hit the zombie tokens, but also Waste Not itself, which is the main reason, which honestly I think is the reason why the matchup is pretty bad. I think if they don't go turn 2 Waste Not, turn 3 Waste Not, it's a decent matchup, but we just kind of fold to turn 2 waste not turn 3 um discard, which is very rough. Especially if they have Goblin to force us to draw discard 2 cards. Kind of why Fable is not as good in the matchup. So I think moving forward, I want to try Temporary Lockdown instead of Deafling Clarion as my 3-mana sweeper. I think this deck needs a 3-mana sweeper because of how slow it is. Thanks to the package of the counter spells plus Micromancer. But moving to the sideboards, I like most of the sideboard honestly. I don't really have anything bad to say about any of the cards. All the cards are relevant. I will always love this card in Nimble Larcenist. The fact that you're able just to gain so much information and know what exactly you're dealing with help makes your counter spells go up in value. Honest, if it wasn't for Moonblast Cleric and me wanting it to put it into the deck, this would be my 81st card. I always try to find a way, if possible, to play it main deck, just because of how good just taking information, at least taking some form of good removal spell. And I feel like I'm always bringing this card, like always. Um, Spell Pierce is good. I tend to bring it in against like non-creature spells or like anytime they're playing non-creatures or like that tempo matters. Like if I can just hold up one blue mana and just counter something is great, which is part of the reason why Swan Song is also in the deck in the sideboard, is just being a 1 mana hard counter. Like yes, they make a blue bird creature token, but we don't really care about a 2/2 bird. Rending Volley, good against aggro decks, especially blue and white creatures. Especially it's best against Convoke. That's kind of where you want to bring this card in. Is you just want the answers for Convoke, being able to deal with their 4/4 Convoke creatures. Pick your poison. It's one of the best sideboard cards out there right now. Just anytime they're playing like a relevant artifact, enchantment, or a creature flying, you just kind of want to bring it in. Vein Ripper is the big one, but even against Fable decks, it's pretty good. So a lot of decks, I you want to bring this in, especially if you're playing against Niv. I want to bring this in, just a way to get rid of something that's already on the battlefield that's very annoying. Rest in peace. It's for Phoenix and other things that care about the graveyard. Even Amalia, I would consider bringing this in just to shut off the graveyard aspect, which is part of the reason why I'm like okay to exiling the graveyard in this deck because we don't have that much recursion outs. We don't have any recursion outside of Helia, which is fine. Mystical Dispute, additional counter spell is great against control. The fact we can basically spend 1 mana, force them to counter us to pay 3, just being that mana positive, essentially. Send them off for Amalia. Nimble also talk about Verdict, just a great sweeper. I wish we had a good 4 mana exile effect. We could play Extinction Event, but I don't think that's good. I think Sunfall's too slow for the decks we want. Like yes, we remake the body, but is I don't think that's what we want. I didn't really have problems being able to cast it because this is just a blue-white deck splashing red and green. Tolsmia, I think it's fine in the sideboard for the time being. I think if we begin to see a lot more aggro in the format, or even hell, even waste not, just being able to profitably block and deal with basically 4 tokens is so nice and helpful. But like outside of that, it's fine against vampires. It's not the greatest. It doesn't trade. It doesn't kill the preacher. It trades neutral. It trades with the token trades with blood tithe. It's just fine, and it dies to Soren. Like it's fine. And lastly, Yorion. I think I didn't use it as much as I should, and I think that part of the reason is because of I haven't played as much paper as I have recently, or just Pioneer in general as I have recently. I have gone back into swing of things, but I kind of need to make sure like I have Yorion as a companion, and it's just a 3 mana draw a relevant card. I need to keep that more in mind, but it really didn't. I really didn't feel like I had the time versus vampires, and I had so much I could just do with the cards in hand and my mana already that I'm not even considering going down to less than 34 lands. I think this deck really wants to hit his land drops, and I know you theoretically could with the amount of cantrips there are, but I don't want to put myself in that situation. I just want to be able to hit my land drops and pass turn, hold up mana, and do something with the said mana. Like maybe I'll cycle, maybe I'll float out, but the deck's already running 3, 6, 9, 11 triumphs. Like you can cycle those if you're not playing them for the extra mana. I will say I've had to train myself to understand the importance of not tapping your the white lands, or even the blue lands. I'm trying to tap other things first, like stomping ground, stomping ground, and sacred foundry are the first ones I'm trying to tap because all my triumphs basically produce white. And then maybe I'll tap my steam vents. Like steam vents, my check lands, I try not to tap. I'm just trying to be being super mindful of which ones I tap, which ones I don't tap. There were times where I had Glacial Fortress and Stomping Ground in hand. I think there was one game where I misplayed which land to go to play first. I don't know if that was online or in person or in the RCQ, but definitely having Glacial Fortress and Stomping Ground was very annoying. And if I have, and I think if I was able to cut a Glacial Fortress for and mess with the numbers a bit, I would probably try to reduce the number of glacial fortresses. Well, I guess the same is true for some Pillar Grove with steam vents. So honestly, I would probably need to cut some Pillar Grove for maybe hopefully a Hinterland Harbor. I'll figure out the math on that and numbers exactly, and that way I have less lands coming in tapped, and that's really just a big thing. Um, but there was one question which was, oh, when do I bring in just the various um, one drops in? So just to go over that real quick, um, just to go over that real quick, um, Spell Pierce, I'm bringing, against Phoenix, I'm bringing in Spell Pierce only. Against Vampires, I'm bringing in Pick Your Poison, um, Vampires is Pick Your Poison, and Spell Pierce, honestly, just to hit the Niv, and not the Niv, sorry, hit the Sorin, just being able to have some cheap answers, or even Fable, just being able to interact with it any turn 3 play is like super good. If you're able to just go 2-drop pass, hold up a single blue mana, the opponent may not anticipate the fact that you have Spell Pierce. That's always so good to see, and they can't really be forced themselves to play around it. Against Amalia, not really. I'm bringing in Rending Volley. That's kind of a given. The fact that it gets around Ward is also nice. I'm not really bringing in Swan Song. Yeah, no, I'm not bringing in. You could bring in Swan Song, but you don't have to. It depends on everything else that you have in the deck and what cuts I need to make. I haven't really run the exact numbers. I was playing a lot based on feel this past weekend. Against Heroic, you're bringing Rending Volley. I'm bringing Spell Pierce. Spirits, it's Pick Your Poison, Rending Volley, and not, I guess Spell Pierce, yeah. I bring in Spell Pierce against Pierce. I want to bring in Swan Song against Pierce because of the fact the bird is super relevant. Lotus Field, that is gonna be Spell Pierce Swan Song. I don't think I bring in, you don't want to bring Pick Your Poison against them, or Rending Volley doesn't do enough. In Soul, just Spell Pierce. The Gruul aggro decks with especially new ones, I wouldn't bring in anything. You may even consider cutting Micromancer because of how slow it is, because it is the slowest of all the just the generically powerful creatures to play. Humans just Rending Volley against Control. I'm looking at Spell Pierce, Swan Song. Probably not Pick Your Poison. Definitely not Rending Volley. And then against Green Devotion, Pick Your Poison is semi-relevant. It could hit somewhat the artifacts that they're playing. Seascape Leveler, if they hardcast it, you're probably already in a tough spot. Um, it can hit the ley line if they're on that build. But more so, I'm looking at Swan Song to stop the 6 mana create card with flashback. But I know that was a question, so I kind of wanted to go through the meta real quick and talk about that. But yeah, that was my kind of like tournament report and how I feel about the deck. I actually really like the deck. I think if I had to play anything next weekend, I kind of run back this list and making a quick change to playing a temporary lockdown here instead. It helps out with the Micromancer count, going up to 6. I'm not huge on Eidolon of Rhetoric, but it's kind of a necessary evil. Um, in this type of deck, it's okay. Nothing great about it. It's really bad against Lotus is the problem. The fact that especially when they're playing Archdruid's Charm, you kind of need to time it. Especially when I was doing my testing online. Like maybe with temporary lockdown, you could go down Eidolon for Archon, but this is something. This is something very similar to what I would play. I guess this goes here, because according to Moto, I play something very similar to this. Just being able to have, because I liked all my cards in the sideboard. Rending Volley, I could consider not cutting, but with Amalia around, I don't think you can afford it and Convoke, if Convoke is relevant. Control of this deck is really strong, really good. You basically want to put yourself in a position where you have a threat, and then you have ways to interact with your opponent, and you kind of want to keep that, and you really want to feel like you're always in the advantage. Basically, if you feel like you have skin in the game and like you're able to interact with the opponent, you feel pretty good. But once you feel like you're falling behind, that's kind of where this deck doesn't feel as good. Um, Maybe there's an argument to play something a little different. I think Elder Gargaroth kind of helps with being able just to catch up either in life, creatures, or card advantage. Although it does take a little bit of time to get going sometimes, just Vigilance is nice though, and being a 6/6. So if there was a better 6/5 drop, I would consider that, but I think the only one out there is Kenrith, which is or the White Cavalier. Uh, Maybe White Cavalier is better. It's good against Vein Ripper, but Elder Gargoyle kind of fills that hole, and like it's just a generically powerful card. Um, Maybe there's a world where you play Cavalier instead. I'm not entirely sure. Probably that may also be good, but just being able to have a 5 mana creature, I think. But having a sorry for that disconnect again, kind of frustrating. Just having that way to be good and whatnot is relevant. So yeah, it's pretty good. Very happy about that. But I think that's pretty much everything I have to say about the deck. Pretty happy. This went much longer than I anticipated. I was hoping for maybe like 20, 30 minutes to be done. Nope. It's gonna be a 40-minute video. Well, if you like listening to my ramblings, be sure to subscribe. If not, I understand. Hopefully I'll be live streaming some more enigmatic content this week. I think I'll be running this 95 with temporary lockdown. I kind of really want to stress test the waste not matchup because that is why I did not qualify for DC this past weekend, and I was really hoping to. I kind of want to see how that is with this build, and I want to try how that is with this build, and maybe comparing it to some Karuga lists that other people have been having success with. I think those are my next steps. I really like this deck. I really like Change Rocks. I like what the deck offers. If I had to go to Kruger, I would. I'll have I'll make a separate video of what I think of how I would build Kruger right now. Maybe I'll build it. Maybe I'll like build it from scratch or like build it from a shell that I already like. But yeah, that's all. Another video for another time. But thanks so much for watching and listening, and until next time.